Since the release of Disney Lorcana, one deck has remained at the top with every expansion, that being Ruby Amethyst. This ink combination started the first chapter by focusing on simple control. Then, with the release of Rise of the Floodborn, the script got totally flipped on its head. First thought to be a negative, the bounce mechanic proved to be one of the strongest in the game, raising this deck to Tier 0 status. But is it still strong going into the Inklands, and will it be able to hold on to the top spot, or will it fold under the pressure? Well, let me tell you what. If you just want the short answer, then yes, it is still undeniably OP. But if you want to know what makes it such a dominant force in the meta, then stick around, because man, for the last week, I've been cooking in the lab, and to be honest, it's a little spicy. Now, being a player that's stuck away from the meta for both the first chapter and Rise of the Floodborn, I took it upon myself to try out this deck and see what it's all about, and I made changes where I felt the deck was lacking moving into the current meta. So let's take a look at what I did more in depth. So the first thing I changed was the one drop slot. The Olaf or mini count has dropped from 4 of each to only 4 in total, making way for 2 Chernobog's followers and 2 Rafiki's mystical fighters. The addition of Chernobog's followers comes in to help alleviate the problem of not having enough inkables in your opening hand by allowing them to be banished after questing to draw a card. Rafiki's appearance is due to his Challenger +3 effect, which helps to remove either Olaf or Mini in the mirror match, or to help remove those pesky Ursulas that come down on turn 2 thanks to the new discard. Next up, I took out the Dragonfires and replaced them with Prince Eric Expert Helmsman, which in my opinion seems to be a very underutilized card. His ability to banish an opposing character when he is banished cannot be overlooked. This can have devastating effects on the opponent's board, making them think twice before challenging or removing him. Also, his ability with Teeth and Ambitions is quite good. Then we have Jim Hawkins, an absolute game changer. Being able to come out on turn 5 and not only allow you to play a location for free, but move him there for free as well is amazing. This play forces the opponent to make tough decisions when choosing how to move forward, especially with the next addition on this list. Locations. And this ink pairing has plenty to choose from, let me tell you, but there are definitely 2 that stand out among the rest. The first being the Queen's Castle. This powerhouse card allows players to draw a card for every character at this location, and when hand count and resource management are keys to success, this card cannot be understated in draw power. Then there's the RLS Legacy, giving all your characters evasive while here, which can help when facing opponents playing evasive character heavy decks. On the top of amazing abilities, these locations don't only do this, but also give you passive lore every turn, which can add up quickly, keeping your opponent on their toes. Next up to see the boot is Lady Tremaine, to make way for Madame Medusa, Boss. Even though this card is still a 6 cost uninkable, she can come in clutch when facing off against aggro decks or when in need of a quick removal later on in the game. And oh yeah, goodbye Maleficent Dragon, this 9-drop that ends up being inked more times than not. Her usefulness has definitely ran its course with me as far as I'm concerned. The rest of the deck has pretty much remained untouched, with the bounce package still remaining as a key part of the deck strategy. Cards like Madame Snake and Fox still come in clutch, helping to protect damaged characters, draw extra cards with Maleficent Sorceress or Merlin Rabbit, and to even gain lore with Merlin Goat. Also, many of the characters on this list have on-play effects that make great bounce targets in the late game, like Madame Medusa or Elsa, helping to remove characters or locking them down for a turn. Lastly, the big guy, Maui. This is your location-killing demigod. Locations don't fight back, so they become easy pickings for the hero to all. This makes Maui more important than ever, so it will be hard not to see him taking up 4 slots in every deck being played. Now let's talk about some tech options I chose. I played around with both Ruby Queen of Hearts, but she just didn't seem to help with the card draw any more than Friends on the Other Side or Merlin Rabbit did once I got him bouncing around, so I took her back out. But that 8-drop Big Booty Judy Ursula, when paired with Merlin Crab, is just deadly. Plus, when she's at the RLS Legacy, she just turns into an evasive monster, holding down the field. Last up, I decided to throw in a Sorceress Spellbook just for the mirror match. With all this being said, even though the deck is stronger and more consistent throughout the early game, if there's one place this deck takes the cake, it's in the late game. The ability to consistently clear your opponent's field is almost unstoppable if you can get to this point, and most other decks won't even be able to compete after this. Now don't get too hyped up yet, this deck still has its weaknesses. One of those being super fast aggro style builds that come out gunning from the start. This deck really needs to get enough ink into the inkwell to start dropping its bombs. Even though Ruby Amethyst is less dependent on strong cards than ever before due to bounce and location cards, it still struggles until it can start dropping the 6-cost characters in that hectic Be Prepared. Once here, though, the mayhem can begin and you can start clearing the board with ease. To help get to this point, try to keep your opponent's board under control. Try not to allow them to go too wide by utilizing the bounce mechanics and sending your characters back to your hand to protect them after challenging. This is also when Prince Eric can come in handy, allowing you to banish an extra character when he trades into an opposing threat. By now you might be wondering though, hey, this is good and all, but what should I mulligan? Well, that answer is not as simple as just one best for all occasions. If anything, this may be the most important part of the game, so let's dive in, shall we? First off, you probably want to have at least one Olaf or Mini as the early game strategy depends on it. These two help defend against attacks from low cost characters, and another card that may be beneficial is holding on to Teeth and Ambitions. However, I have only been running two, so seeing it in your opening hand will be less likely. If any card is important to keep in your opening hand, it's definitely one of these two, either Madam Mim Snake or Madam Mim Fox. These cards can be used to gain a lot of utility in the early game while helping you take out opponents' characters, or bouncing back your own characters such as Maleficent Sorceress or Merlin Rabbit. Cusco is also a great character to have in your mulligan for his added draw power when being banished. Now let's talk about song cards to keep. If you aren't facing a discard deck, then you should be okay. But if you are, do not, and I mean do not, hold on to that Be Prepared, Teeth and Ambitions, or Friends on the other side. Try to draw into these cards later on, as Ursula will most likely be dropped down turn 2, making you discard one of these songs. Plus the opponent will get to see your entire hand. If you're not facing discard and you draw into a Be Prepared, I'd hold on to it. If you're trying to win against other competitive decks, you'll need to throw this card down at least once during the game. Plus having it now helps you from having to find it later. So Illumineers, now that we have a grasp of the mulligan and how this deck is meant to be played, let's jump into some games and see it in action. So first off, I'm playing against Amber Steel. I throw the mini into the inkwell and play the Olaf for my 1-drop turn 1 and pass a turn. The opponent decides to ink a Bashful and pass it back to me. I assume that they do not have a 1-drop, so I decide to think for a second, quest with my Olaf, then I drop the Cusco into the inkwell and play out the Madam Mim Snake, bouncing the Olaf back to my hand so I can use it as ink for my next turn. I pass it back to the opponent. They decide to ink the Queen and play out the Snow White that allows your dwarves to come in for 1 less cost. I then ink an Olaf, like I said I was going to. Play the Teeth on my Snake, only doing 2 damage as she has 3 willpower. And then I take out the Snow White. They ink the Huntsman and play out a Sleepy, I believe it is, which I believe comes in Exerted. I then decide to quest with my Madam Mim Snake and play out Friends from the Other Side, hard casted. I then ink the Madam Mim Snake and pass the turn back. They decide to play the Bare Necessities and get rid of the Friends from the Other Side that's in my hand. That card can actually remove any card that's in my hand of their choosing, as long as it's a non-character card. They play out a Bashful and pass it back. So I decided to quest with the Madam Mim Snake and bounce it back to remove the damage, and then rush into the Sleepy, which then makes the Bashful not able to quest. Once he throws down the dock so the Bashful can quest, passes it back to me. I decided to quest with the Madam Mim Fox, and then bounce it with the other Madam Mim Fox in my hand to remove the damage, and I ink the Madam Mim Snake. I throw the fox into the bashful, doing 4 damage, and then they respond by playing the queen and dropping a bare necessities. I do not have any songs in my hand, and I believe they're all characters, so they couldn't discard anything. I throw a Cusco into the inkwell and drop down the Madame Medusa, which then removes a character with 3 strength or less. I get rid of the dock or I believe it's the Happy Man, to get rid of that off the field. Then I remove the Bashful as well. They throw down a dock to help lower the cost of their dwarves or any character when he quests. I quest with the Madame Medusa and throw down the Jim Hawkins, who lets me play out the Queen's Castle for free, and then I move Jim to the Queen's Castle and the Madame Medusa, so I can do a double draw next turn, hopefully. They quest with the Queen to give my Jim Hawkins -4. For some reason, they didn't do it to the Madame Medusa, so they could clear it off the field with the dock. But I was fine with that. Next turn, I draw into 3 cards, thanks to the Queen's Castle. I quest with both my cards and throw back the Madame Medusa with the Madame Imp Fox and rush in to the Queen, taking it out. The opponent decides to go into my Jim Hawkins and then finish him off with Strength of Raging Fire. In response, I throw down the Madame Medusa, getting rid of the dock, so they cannot use him to lower the price of their characters when he quests. They throw down another dwarf. I respond by throwing down another Jim Hawkins, doubling down on my locations, and then throwing my Madame Medusa into their last dwarf, clearing it, and moving her also to the Queen's Castle. Next up, I'm facing off in the mirror match against Ruby Amethyst, which is something that I actually came across quite often in the ranked mode on Pixelborn. I give the opponent a quick greetings, they give me one back, and we get this game started. They throw the Surfer Mini into the inkwell to play down the 1-drop Mini 1/3. In response, I ink a Minnie Mouse myself, and I throw down Chernobog's Followers, which was actually the wrong move. I should have drew down the Minnie Mouse as well. They decide to quest with their Minnie Mouse, and I believe right here they throw down a Teeth and Ambitions to remove my Chernobog's Followers, doing 2 damage to their Mini, which it survives, and gets rid of my Chernobog's Followers so I cannot draw the extra card. I ink a Minnie Mouse and play with the Cusco, trying to get some draw power off his ability, so if he is banished I get to draw a card. They throw Merlin into the inkwell, play the Surfer Mini Evasive, and pass a turn. I then use my Cusco to take out the rest of their Mini Always Classy, throw the Merlin Goat into the inkwell as it's on turn 4 and beyond. I then bounce back my Cusco with the Snake so I can get a stronger character on the field. Throw the Cusco into the inkwell, and I quest with the Snake and then bounce the Snake back with the Fox. In response, the opponent just quests with their Surfer, and then back to me. I ink the Snake and decide to play the Jim Hawkins to play with the Queen's Castle, so I can get some extra draw on my next turn. The opponent plays out the Prince Eric, which I'm not happy to see. I then draw off my Queen's Castle and my draw for my turn. Throw Rafiki into the inkwell as he's not really needed at this point. Then I throw down the Madame Medusa the boss, clearing one of their characters. Then I quest with both the Fox and the Jim Hawkins, taking me to 7. On their turn, they throw down the RLS Legacy to get some passive lore, I would assume. Then they quest with the Prince Eric for some reason, which I did not really understand at that point, because I probably would have done that a lot differently. I then decide to take out the RLS Legacy with the Madame Medusa and Jim Hawkins, and quest with my Madame Imp Fox. Then I decide to throw down the Be Prepared, as my location cannot be removed from Be Prepared, so I still will get the passive lore. On their turn, they throw down the Merlin Rabbit, and then ink the Minnie Mouse Surfer and pass it back. I gain my 2 lore from the Queen's Castle, throw down the Madame Medusa, getting rid of the Merlin Rabbit, which I know draws them a card. Then I throw down the Turner Box followers to hopefully get some more card draw, as I am ahead in the ink count. In response, they throw down the Be Prepared. I then, on my turn, throw down the Merlin Rabbit to draw a card. Then I play the Madam Mim Snake to bounce back the Merlin Rabbit to draw yet another card. Then I move the snake to the Queen's Castle so I can do a double draw on my next turn. They throw down the Madame Medusa, getting rid of my snake. I gain 2 more lore from the Queen's Castle. I throw down a double Queen's Castle so I can deal with the Be Prepared to move the Cusco to the Queen's Castle and pass it back. They give me a well played, and that's the game. So, is Ruby Amethyst Bounce Control still good as we travel into the Inklands? Of course. It's still clearly a very powerful deck, and the Into the Inklands expansion has only helped it. With the added locations, as well as a few other tweaks, it has become way less reliant on getting to the late game and has become more aggressive in the early game, allowing it to control the field just a little bit more. But, and I say but, with each new release of Disney Lorcana, the landscape changes, meaning that dropping Be Prepared can no longer guarantee the win. With each new set, new ways emerge to help opponents work around this powerhouse, and things will only continue to change as we move forward. So good luck and have fun, Illumineers. Until next time, I'm Greg, aka The Boss Fox, and this has been Boss Fox Kitchen Table. And remember, if you like this content, smash that like button, subscribe if you want to, and leave a comment down below. I'm always interested in everyone's thoughts, so hit me up. And last but not least, if you want to be notified when my next video drops, hit that little bell. Peace. What does the fox say?